Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be the guy typing something like this out, but here we are. I'm 34 million, been married to my wife, 31,000, for 7 years. We've had our ups and downs like anyone, but I always thought we were solid, not perfect, far from it, but the kind of we argue and make up solid that survives bad days. We're not rich. In fact, when we got married, I was working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on, and she was in nursing school. I used to bring her lunch during my night shifts because I thought little gestures mattered. She used to say I was her rock. Fast forward to this year, I'd been feeling kind of invisible in my own marriage. She started going out more with the girls, staying late at work, and acting annoyed when I asked simple questions. I chalked it up to stress. I told myself not to be paranoid. It happened on a Tuesday night, which for the record is not the kind of night you expect your whole world to change. I had just finished a brutal 12-hour shift and came home to an empty house. No big deal. She said she'd be out with Megan from work. I was heating up leftovers when her iPad, the one she never uses, lit up on the counter. I almost ignored it, but the preview of the message caught my eye. Can't stop thinking about last night. It wasn't from a girl. My stomach did this slow, sinking thing, like when you miss a step going down the stairs. I unlocked it, same passcode as her phone. She never thought I'd check. And there it was, a whole thread of text from some guy named Aaron. Flirty, dirty, and way too comfortable for just friends. Photos, some of her. Definitely not the kind you'd post on Facebook. I felt this weird mix of numb and boiling hot at the same time. Like my brain didn't want to connect the dots, but my gut had already written the headline. She's cheating. I just sat there for a few minutes, staring at the screen, leftovers forgotten in the microwave. That was the night I stopped being her rock and started being the idiot in the wrong story. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I sat on the couch, iPad in my lap, phone in my hand, heart pounding like I'd run a marathon. She walked in at 1:14 a.m., smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. Too heavy, too sweet, and wearing heels she never wears unless it's a special night out. Hey, she said, glancing at me like I was an unexpected piece of furniture. Why are you up? I didn't answer right away. I just held up the iPad and asked, Who's Aaron? Instantly, her face shifted. Not guilty, not scared, annoyed, like I'd just interrupted her favorite show. Oh my God, seriously? He's just a friend from the gym. We text about workouts. I raised an eyebrow. Workouts? These sound like workouts in a motel room. She snatched the iPad from my hands, scrolled, then deleted the entire thread right there in front of me. You're being ridiculous, she snapped. You always get jealous when I have male friends. This is why I don't tell you things. You twist everything. The gaslighting was so instant, it almost made me question if I'd imagined the whole thing. But I hadn't. Those messages were burned into my brain like a bad tattoo. I told her we were going to talk in the morning. She rolled her eyes, muttered something about trust issues, and went to bed. I didn't follow her. By the time the sun came up, I'd gone from furious to eerily calm. The kind of calm that feels like it's sitting on top of a volcano. She walked into the kitchen like nothing had happened, poured herself coffee, and asked if I was done with my little episode. I told her I wasn't in the mood for sarcasm. I wanted the truth. Who Aaron was. How long this had been going on. She sighed dramatically, set her mug down like she was about to teach me a lesson, and said, Fine, we kissed once. That's it. You're blowing it way out of proportion. I laughed, the bitter kind that doesn't sound like it belongs to you, because the texts I saw were way past one kiss. Then she switched tactics. Suddenly Erin was going through a hard time. She was just being supportive, and I had no idea how lonely she'd been because I'm always working. Translation, this was somehow my fault. By the end of that breakfast, she'd managed to position herself as the victim. She even teared up. Not because she was sorry, because I'd invaded her privacy. That was when I realized she wasn't trying to fix anything. She was trying to keep me in the dark just long enough to keep doing whatever she wanted. A few days later, she acted like the whole thing had blown over. More makeup, longer showers, extra perfume before going to yoga. Her phone was glued to her hand like it had been surgically attached. Then it happened. She was in the shower, and her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Normally it was face down, but this time it was face up, lighting up the room. A preview of a message from Aaron popped up. Last night was insane. Same place Friday? I didn't even need to open it, but I did, and there it was. An entire conversation about which hotel had the best sheets and how 2 hours wasn't enough this time. I scrolled. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't stop. There were timestamps, receipts, even a selfie of the two of them in a hotel bathroom mirror. Him shirtless, her biting her lip like she was in some trashy ad. My heart felt like it was beating in my throat. That was the moment every last shred of doubt evaporated. When she came out of the shower, towel wrapped around her, she saw me holding the phone and froze. It was the first time I'd seen her actually look afraid. I didn't raise my voice at first. I just held the phone out and asked, "Do you want to explain this?" She glanced at the screen, then at me, and for a second I thought she might just come clean. But nope, she went full defensive mode. "That's not what it looks like," she blurted. I actually laughed in disbelief. "Really? Because it looks exactly like you screwing some guy named Aaron in a hotel on a weeknight." That's when she lost it. Suddenly, I was the controlling husband who snoops through her phone and makes her feel trapped. She threw in a line about how Aaron actually listens to her, unlike me. The words "maybe if you were around more" came out of her mouth, and something in me snapped. 7 years of me working doubles to keep our lives afloat, reduced to a punchline in her justification speech. I slammed my hand on the counter so hard the coffee mug rattled. "Don't you dare blame me for you being a liar." That's when she stormed into the bedroom, muttering something about not dealing with my drama, and started packing an overnight bag. She didn't even try to finish the fight. She just zipped up that overnight bag, tossed in her makeup case, and walked out the door. No explanation. No, "we'll talk later." Just slammed the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. I stood there for a few minutes in the quiet, the only sound being my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. Then I realized her car was still in the driveway. She'd called an Uber. An hour later, I checked her location on Find My iPhone. Yes, I had it synced from before, and saw the little dot parked at the same hotel she'd been texting about. That was when I decided I wasn't going to just sit at home and stew. I grabbed my keys and drove. I wasn't even thinking about what I'd do when I got there. I just knew I couldn't pretend anymore. When I pulled into the lot, her name was right there on the sign-in sheet at the front desk. Room 214. I don't even remember walking down that hallway. Just the carpeted silence and my heartbeat in my ears. Room 214. The door was cracked, just enough for me to hear laughter inside. I pushed it open without knocking. She was on the bed, cross-legged, wearing the same towel from earlier. Aaron, tall, smug-looking, shirtless, was leaning against the headboard like he owned the place. The first thing she did wasn't cover herself, or apologize, or even look shocked. She rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, are you stalking me now?" Aaron had the audacity to smirk and say, "You must be the husband," like this was some sick joke. I didn't yell. I didn't swing. I just said, "We're done," and turned to leave. She started shouting then. Something about how I was throwing away our marriage over one mistake. One mistake? There was a whole damn gallery of them on her phone. I walked out, ignoring the insults she hurled after me, and drove home in silence. She came home the next afternoon like nothing had happened. No apology, no guilt. Just tossed her bag on the couch and said, "We need to talk about your behavior." I almost laughed. My behavior. She launched into this monologue about how invading her privacy and showing up at her hotel were abusive tendencies. She even tried to paint Aaron as some kind of innocent bystander who was helping her through a rough time. Every time I tried to point out the facts, the texts, the photos, the location data, she deflected. "You're exaggerating. That's not the whole story. I only went to him because you've been emotionally unavailable." It was like arguing with a fog machine. By the end of it, she was sitting there crying. Not because of what she'd done, but because I didn't care enough to fight for us. I told her I wasn't going to fight for something she'd already burned to the ground. 2 days later, I came home from work and found her on the phone, laughing, the kind of laugh she used to give me. My gut told me who was on the other end before I even heard her say, "Okay, babe, see you tomorrow." That was it. The last thread holding this mess together snapped. I walked into the bedroom, grabbed a suitcase, and started packing my clothes. She followed me in, demanding to know what the hell I was doing. I told her I was leaving. Her response, "Fine, go. You'll come crawling back when you realize no one else will put up with you." I didn't say another word. I zipped the bag, walked past her, and didn't look back. The second I stepped out the door, I felt something I hadn't in months. Relief. The first week alone was brutal. Empty apartment, quiet streets, no familiar warmth. I cried more than I care to admit. But somewhere in that grief, I started to feel a spark of clarity. I changed my locks, blocked her on everything, and deleted her from my life digitally. I started walking again. Long walks where I could think without her gaslighting voice in my head. Friends and family rallied around me, which helped. I even joined a gym, ironically enough, because I realized I'd been neglecting my own health while trying to keep everything together for her. It wasn't instant, and it wasn't perfect. I had nights where I replayed everything, the texts, the hotel, the excuses. But each day got a little easier. I started to see myself as someone who deserved honesty, respect, and someone who actually wanted to be with me, not someone who saw me as an obstacle to their selfish needs. I learned a lot the hard way. First, people show you who they really are long before the big reveal. I just ignored the warning signs because I wanted to believe the person I married. Second, boundaries are everything. I had spent years bending over backward to keep the peace, and she exploited that. I realized being a good husband doesn't mean being a doormat. Third, trust is fragile. Once it's broken, you can't just sweep it under the rug. No amount of excuses, tears, or drama can rebuild it if the foundation was rotten. And finally, I learned to listen to my gut, that little voice that told me something was off. I ignored it for too long, and it cost me years of emotional energy. I started small, a new haircut, a few wardrobe upgrades, reconnecting with old friends I'd neglected. Each little change felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd given away for years. I even signed up for a painting class, something I joked about doing for ages but never found time for. Every brushstroke felt like a tiny rebellion against the chaos she left behind. I stopped obsessively checking my phone for messages from her or Aaron. I unfollowed their accounts, blocked her number, and deleted the old photos of us. It wasn't about erasing memories. It was about removing the weight of someone else's betrayal from my shoulders. For the first time in a long time, I felt light. Months passed, and life began to settle into a rhythm I didn't expect. Mornings were mine, coffee on the balcony, music blasting, no one to manipulate or gaslight me. Evenings were quieter, but they felt earned, peaceful. I started dating casually, carefully. I wasn't ready for anything serious yet, and that was okay. I learned to enjoy my own company, to set boundaries without guilt, and to spot red flags early. Work felt less like a grind and more like a purpose again. I started saving money, investing in myself, and planning trips I actually wanted to take. I realized freedom isn't just about leaving someone who hurt you. It's about creating a life you wouldn't trade for anything. The past still stings sometimes, especially when I think about the lies and the betrayal. But it no longer defines me. Looking back, I can't say I'm proud of every reaction I had, but I am proud I didn't let her control the rest of my life. Cheating, lies, gaslighting, those things leave scars, but they also teach you about your own strength. Here's what I tell anyone in a similar situation. Trust your gut. If something feels off, don't ignore it. 2, don't make excuses for someone else's behavior. No amount of stress, loneliness, or hard times justifies betrayal. 3, protect yourself emotionally. Boundaries are your lifeline. Use them. 4, focus on yourself. Reclaiming your life doesn't make you petty. It makes you wise. I don't know if she'll ever truly regret what she did. And honestly, I don't need her to. What matters is I survived it, and I'm stronger for it. Life moves forward, and so do you.